Live stream starts early as usual. Sorry about that. I think you should just probably come back in like 5 minutes and maybe even more, and things will get going. So you'll just have to stare at my face for 5 minutes.
Oh, bro.
Hey, partner, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, all good. Just trying to clear out inbox that is just overloading and tabs explode. But what I would say to you, if we're dealing with these guys, it was the KYC stuff. I think I posted it in the Telegram actually. But if it's any good, I'll hook you up with Vishal Gupta, who's a mentor of mine working on KYC and AML implementation for the FCA sandbox, which is Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. So this is highly regulated stuff, and he's SSL captured banking details so that it's good as an in-person check because the banks have already done an in-person check. So he's also patented that with the intent to open source and create universal basic income for India while stamping out crime and all kinds of crazy shit. But he's a good dude, and he's got a product that might be very useful for the bonding curve team if they're dealing with Dutch Chain's regulatory side.
I really hope we don't touch that with the 10-foot pole.
That's fair. It's all the same thing. It's the bridge of taking, you know, like an organization is a cause, we have to remember. And currently we have all these very top-down causes all over the world that have all kinds of asymmetric risk and problems from just their nature. But we do need to transition the likes of Facebook and Google at some point. We need to bridge that gap, and well, they're equity style companies, you know, so it's when and how we get there, but it's all the same thing in a way. It's bridging the now to the future, at least in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, no, totally.
But yeah, I'm with you. Fucking Christ, is their bureaucratic paperwork long.
I just want to like let it not. It's like it's the best way to slow down something is try to get all legal about it. Dude, we got crypto. We don't need to do that. Giveth doesn't do it, at least, you know.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I'm typing into the general channel. There's somebody asking a question.
Cool. Is that Bowen that popped in as fellow Jitster, or did he pop out again?
That's me. I'm on the road.
He's moving Jitster. And there's Bowen. Hold on. So yeah, this technology guy that I was talking about earlier, I guess technology is probably not the wrong term. His the blockchains for social good guy. He looks quite interesting. I'm going through his flyers and stuff now. But he's been doing this quite a number. He worked for the Open University for 37 years, according to this thing. So he would be a nice person to drag in at some point for something.
Yeah. Okay. So we got 2 minutes to wait, just see who else drops in. I know Danny's around, so I'm sure she'll be here in a second. But we can probably start with the classic, hey, what did you do this week? Does anyone want to start?
Can do if it's helpful.
Yeah.
I've got it listed. What day are we starting on? It's all Sunday, Monday, 18th of March. It's probably the wrong week, isn't it? Tuesday, Wednesday. What date are we? 28th. So Monday, 18th to 20. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the right page. 20th to the 29th. Do the week after that. Friday, Saturday. Okay, here we go. Talked to Martin and Jacqueline about the meetings about rainforests and tried to hook them up with Team 1. Jedi sign up and reading about the role. Milestone for the event to get out to the Jedi meeting. Bought a flight out there. Then I did a Bright ID meeting. Informed my dentist that I could not attend because I was going to the Jedi thing. Read over the Ostrom paper from the people that were in Note 9. That was the key takeaway from the Ostrom paper that they had was that it's going to be very interesting as infrastructure of corporations and organizations in general become DAOs and thus forkable, because currently the likelihood of a fork or the major, I guess, hurdle of forking companies at the moment is that when things are built, they're built, and they Coinbase's infrastructure, for instance, if that was all kind of a flat organization or something like that, it still wouldn't be forkable because their infrastructure is in place and in use, and nobody but the Coinbase team knows that. So as we transition to DAOs, it's suggesting that all of that will create a new way of organizing, in that the general kind of top-down thing is probably going to have to dilute itself because of the pressures of the many. So there's going to create all kinds of clusterfucks all over the world, I guess. But it'll be quite interesting to see how we adapt to that. But that was the main takeaway from that paper. I found a NASA paper on systems, but I haven't read it. Guys, organising a meeting with Jacqueline again, so there was more of the back and forth, catching up on telling notes to help requests with Confusion 4. I'm just looking for anything that's relevant rather than everything. Had a it's Jedi meeting, it's not in our book, blah blah. I found Big Innovation Center as well. That might be quite interesting to look at. They were they're behind something on a larger scale in the UK. I'm trying to remember exactly what. I think it was Open Value Networks within the UK. That they look quite interesting potentially. Did Open Value Network reading. Deployed notes that when I tried to deploy notes, Kai actually deployed them because I fucked it up. Comments, did a bunch of SVK kind of stuff, mainly networking them to Bright ID, trying to get Bright ID some EOS money. However, I talked and I don't know, I guess I just powwowed with that kind of crew there and got a lot of interest from their larger network towards us. Whether or not they'll turn up or just wait for us to turn up, etc. It's all kinds of stuff. I learned about E-Prime on Danny's suggestion, which was a great read. I recommend to everyone. It's the language game. Then I went over Vinay Gupta's slides that were posted in Social Coding by, I forget his name, it's the Aussie guy that was at Node 9 as well in thing. He was a safe guy anyway. He posted that, so that was a good one. Shared that with Adam from Bright ID as well, because the relevancy of identity insurance is actually a good point to take away from those slides, in that claims and credentials in a reputation system are essentially insured by the person that is backing them, whether or not it's monetary or it's a non-monetary currency, if you think about it. So they're floating around in social coding, but it's a really, really nice set of slides worth looking at. Went over Danny's grammar doc as well. I talked to the open co-op via invite interaction stuff, iterated on the harmonious working patterns because they published that while it was still in draft. Then Tuesday, I did some design group stuff, reading bullshit. Lots of connecting the EOS stuff, actually meeting them. Working patterns for the open co-op. Let's just repeat. Wednesday, the main thing was Holochain meetup. They are really interesting cats. All the people in that community are really, really cool people in general. And I met the guy from Open Co-op there serendipitously. Turns out he's in the UK, and we didn't realize each other till we met each other in the pub. But should we want to get involved with them, he wants to plan an unconference this year. I said I'd like to help him with that because it sounds like a good thing to do. And I found out that most of Ripple's Twitter followers are a botnet. And, I'm just going to finish there because there's loads of stuff. I will pass it.
Oh, wait. Intentions and distractions. I forgot about that.
Oh, my distractions are billions. There's just tabs upon tabs and emails upon emails and chats upon chats. And my intent is to ignore the distraction for the duration of this meeting and concentrate on you guys. So yeah, that's it. I will pass it to Griff since you're on my screen.
Yeah, nice. And you gave me time to actually write all my stuff out. So this week was mostly networking again. I really didn't get nearly enough done, especially because somehow I got addicted to the OA, which is really tragic. So I got a lot of FaceTime in with Aya from the Ethereum Foundation. We went to Jerusalem together, and we went and had some lunches together. We talked about a lot of things. Made me think that we should try to launch Giveth to mainnet, actually. So I even put that too late into one of the blog posts, which I also did a lot of. I reviewed a lot of blog posts, the 2 posts that Chris came up with, which are great. And I actually, even though I was too late to change the slide, I went into the Medium and changed the slide, Chris, to update Byrne's comments. I also networked with Portis, those guys, and I don't think that we need to integrate them into the Rinkeby version of the dApp, but when we rebuild dApps, I think it would make sense to add them in from the start. Did a lot of work with Telegraph actually this week. Try to push them pretty hard because there's a huge opportunity with ProgPal. So trying to get that squared away. Let's see. Also there's these Gitcoin grants, which Telegraph is one. Chris has one up that's under my name, but the money goes to Chris for doing some decentralized data stuff. Parker has one, but you have to scroll all the way down to get to it. And there's this quadratic voting radical exchange thing where the more donors that sign up for a Gitcoin grant, the more funds that go to that grant. So if you guys can just go and do 2 or 3 months of $5 donations to a few of these grants, literally $100 will come their way because there's hardly any participation. And it's just sheer numbers. So Giveth can almost Sybil attack this thing and get funds to our favorite projects. So I think that's a good idea. I also ended up doing some Africa Burn this week, and I'm going to onboard Africa Burn. I hope Danny's cool with that. I need to ask her about it. Haven't made the campaign yet. but going to try to run. It'll be a good primer for the Decentral camp this year as well. And speaking of Decentral, I worked a little bit on the forum, and we still need a lot of work on Decentral, and we're way behind. And it sounds like the ARC part is probably not going to happen because we don't have enough support from our team crew to do it, which is so sad. But yeah, and then of course my main focus has been the Odyssey stuff. Had some chats with Zargum. He ended up pumping out some awesome work on simulations. Been working on a real-time board thanks to Kai and all of his guidance on that stuff, and Max, and had some big calls with Sergey, who's the main guy from Team 2. Had lots of Team 1 calls today. And most of my time is just explaining the general concept and system to people. But a lot of it's also going, it'll all pay dividends later once we actually have this hackathon together. So yeah, I think that's it. Maybe I'll just pass it to Lorelai. Should I mute?
No, I'm sure I can talk through yours. Is that okay, everybody?
Here, why don't you talk through yours, or I'll talk. I'm muting because.
Okay. Hey, let's see. This week I was working on a Unicorn DAC update article, which I'm kind of posing as like probably going to overlap it with a like Dream DAO. Where are they now from when the Unicorn DAC won a Dream DAO contest with Argon? I got a chance to do some way deeper research on interfaces for the roles process, and that was really good. And I'm excited about what I have found out. So I'm really grateful that we were able to redirect Lorelai's energy this month. And let's see, I've been coordinating lots of Unicorn check-in meetings and facilitating those, keeping up on token engineering, well, yeah, that thing, meetings on that. And oh man, Unicorn delegations this week, late. I had so many technical troubles this week with the DApp, and Bowen came to my rescue, and I finally was able to connect yesterday. And so we got back to Barcelona yesterday, and I'm doing more setup of the headquarters here. And I don't really have any specific intentions for this meeting. Oh, I did put out I do want to know if people feel like we need notes for this meeting. Usually I don't think we do for Fireside Chat, but I intend to find that out. And let's see, there was one other thing. Oh, distractions. Wait, what?
We usually do notes.
Oh, for Fireside Chat. Okay, cool. Distractions. Yeah, not distracted. And I'll pass it to Danny.
Yeah. Let's see. So this week I was at the Radical Exchange Conference. I've created a milestone and with a little bit of info that I tracked while I was there. Then I've been going through my notes today and gathering a bunch more links and follow-throughs. But running into an issue, I can't edit the DApp, or I can't edit the milestone that I proposed. So let's sorting that out too. But I just want to touch on some of the things from this weekend, because it was really awesome for people to look down and see Giveth on my tag, go, oh yeah, I know Giveth, and then have something to follow up with. I had some great conversations with, let's see, like David Z. Morris, who writes for Breaker Mag. He remembered writing about Giveth favorably before, and we had some really awesome conversations. He wrote a beautiful synopsis of Vitalik's closing keynote speech. This was really, really inspiring, and I felt very in my power and in my place, because the activism and cooperativism that the authors of the book, Radical Market, but also all these other writers and speakers that were there, it's the place that I feel really at home from working in these fields for the last several years, and then to have Vitalik being the speaker and so many Ethereum projects being presented for the project exchange. We use quadratic voting through a variety of activities during the weekend. There's everything from a really badass piece of art being created to model NFTs. The artist who did it, Johnny Dollar, I had great connection with him, and he's excited to collaborate on some artwork for us on something that we were talking about. He has a lot of opinions on tokenizing art, so I got some links to things he's written to share about that. Telegraph came up in a variety of, the other really cool thing about the quadratic voting is I was talking to Nathan Schneider, who is somebody I really admire and appreciate for his other writing. He's one of the representatives of Radical Exchange. He and David Morris, we went to a workshop together and pitched. We had to create a project, a game. So it was an exercise in game theory. And a fellow named Danny that I met when we were in Catalonia, he was at the Giveth house there. We were on a team, and we came up with this cool game called Fight Gentrification Club, and pitched it, had a lot of really great feedback, and ended up winning the quadratic vote. Yay!
Yay!
And then the art that Johnny made that got bid on, a guy that I was hanging out with ended up being the one who was bidding to win the art, and it got up to like $3,000, and he was bidding against this other guy, and we were talking about it, and he was like, well, what if we just teamed up? So it kind of turned the auction up on its head, because the two guys who were bidding against each other decided to collaborate and split the cost and share the art, and that sparked a lot of really interesting dynamics too. So those are just a few examples of some of the really awesome connections. The Telegraph and the signaling and the Prague POW thing, because that kept coming up, and I realized it was way over my head. So one of my distractions was I was trying to learn about it and looking at the EIP and the cat herders stuff. Went off into a big rabbit hole there and realized I need to up my programming skills and understand it better, which is when Griff posted about that course for women, and I started looking into that, and it's got me all inspired about. So lots of distraction that's also very productive and giving me some strategic thoughts on how to engage in creating some good campaigns and milestones and what to onboard next. Yeah, so that's just a little bit. I'll have a ton more once I can get this milestone to update. You guys will take a look at it. I think from intentions and distractions, my intention is just to, well, I wanted to give that share back on what I learned, but also just enjoy this fireside chat and see what agendas we have after we get through this check-in. So I'll end my check-in, and let's see, Bowen, do you have this figured out yet? Are you there?
Yeah, for some reason, Chrome just isn't working with Jitsi anymore. So I at least got the audio working, which is good. And I can see everybody. Good morning. Nice to see you. It's always good to come to the Thursdays. I like them. So I will admit that I got a slow start to the week because I had been camping and I got severe sunburn, unlike my hands and my face. So I'm a crispy critter. But what has happened that's kind of awesome is that Frederick and I have started working on fixing a bunch of the stuff in the bridge monitor, and he managed to actually get names up in the recipient field now, which is amazing. So the next thing is to get milestones as links, so it isn't just a click through, and then to split everything up. And so basically everything is starting to happen, and he got me over a hurdle that I had been fighting with for a week. So yay, collaboration. Intentions, having fun at the meeting, and I'm not really distracted now that I got this working in Brave. So I think I'm probably the last person, unless Josh didn't go and I missed it.
I still have to go.
Oh, hello.
Chris.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with my distractions in the sense that I'm actually stuck in the supermarket because I was doing groceries and now I was waiting to check in. So that's the noise in the background and I cannot leave because I still had to check in. So I'm hiding in the toilet paper aisle because there's less people here and it's less strange to do a check-in. And intention is just to have like a productive meeting, of course. So what I did this week, so I finalized the what's happening text, and then I published it and shared it, etc. Then I reorganized a little bit all like the contacts for the Odyssey hackathon and tried to make sure that everyone is actually registered and that they're registered under the correct name. So almost got a confirmation of team 123, but I'm giving them some breathing space. Then I just joined in the design meeting and chatted a little bit more with Josh and Kai afterwards. I added the token bonding curve post some more after some nice feedback from Josh, and I published that and I shared that one. I did just before this meeting the Danny's unicorn meeting, and then a lot of administration. So I'm going together with Josh to the Jedi preparation hackathon in Groningen next week, or Groiningham, like Josh calls it, which I prefer. And some more like administration of for myself, getting my finances in order, and I hope to get some more. To offer some more support for the Odyssey hackathon this week. And I give it back to Griff.
Yeah, so we got nothing to talk about. How great, meeting is over. Just kidding. So now we will build a little agenda and I'll make sure that we actually get to all these points. But we can just kind of have mostly a free-flowing conversation. Does anyone have any points that they want to cover? I can talk momentum voting if you guys want. I don't know if that's actually something you guys want to talk about, but it came up in the general channel just now.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about that. I was confused quite a lot by it because I thought it was preference signaling, but when I saw Kai's diagram, it starts to recompute. So yeah, if you could go over that, it'd be amazing.
I would love to hear more about Radical Exchange and where Giveth could connect into that. If you're into that at all, Danny, a little more background information. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm full of thoughts on it because I'm trying to decompress and pull it all out right now.
Anybody else have anything they want? Any other topics? Okay, if you do come up with a topic, type it up in Jitsi on the side chat if it doesn't come in the flow, or just bring it up, and we can have a nice chill conversation. So, momentum voting. It's relatively it's really complex, but I think it can be explained in a simple way. It's basically just a specifically designed governance system for an application of deciding how to allocate funds to various different projects, right? So it's really perfect for what Giveth is trying to do as a DAO. And Zargam designed it for this exact application where you have a few things you know. You know how much money you have, right? So as a DAO, you know how much money you have in your coffers. You also know how much each choice is, each milestone is asking for, and then you also know what the total supply of the token is, the governance token is, right? So what you do is all the people who have tokens are able to allocate their vote to the choice that they like. So in general, it'll probably be like The UX is still to be determined, but the easiest way to think about it and the way it'll work in the back end for sure is kind of a percentage. So if I have 100 tokens, I'll allocate, 10% to this choice, 80% to this choice, and 10% to this choice. And then once the votes are allocated, we do this time dimension. So we have this thing that we call momentum. It used to be called conviction voting. Now we're calling it momentum because two different ESL people, one of them being Igor from POA Network, told me that when I said conviction voting, he thought I was talking about like prison DAO, and that convicts would be like, using this governance mechanism to decide cigarettes to vote and shit like that. It didn't work. So we went to momentum voting, and when you vote for something, so if I have 100 tokens, right, and this, I put 80 tokens behind one choice. The next day, it'll be more than 80. And the next day, it'll be more than that, and more than that, and more than that, until you get to this point where it kind of maxes out. So an example of the equation that we use to calculate the power would be alpha times conviction from yesterday plus the number of tokens allocated, right? And this would be global. So if there's 1,000 tokens from various people that were put in there, all of those tokens would be included in this vote, including the 80 that I put in. But let's just say that there's 80. So if alpha is 0.5, you would have, for the first day, the conviction yesterday was 0. So the number of tokens is 80. So the momentum behind it is 80. And then the next day, you have 0.5 times 80, because that was the conviction from the day before. So 40 plus 80, which is the total token. So you have a total momentum for the next day at 120. That's 50% more, right? And then the day after that, you'd have 120 times 0.5, which is 60, plus 80, which is 140. So that's a lot less more than before, right? And then now you have 140 times 0.5 is 70, plus 80 is 150. So you can see that it goes up, it goes up really fast, and then it kind of asymptotes out until it gets to a maximum, right? A maximum point. And so it's like time matters. The longer you sit your vote behind a choice, the more power it gets. But that amount of power that the tokens gain every day is decreasing. So you get more, but you get less more, right, as days go on. So that's the voting power piece. And then you have this trigger function. So the trigger function is a very complex math equation, but you can kind of think of it as like it can be set in advance so that you can say, listen, we will never spend more than 30% of all the funds that are in the DAO in one go, right? So if you hit all the tokens, this percentage, of course, is a choice on your equation. If you took all the tokens that exist and put them all behind one choice and you let them sit there forever, it would never, if that choice was for 31% of the total amount of funds that the DAO has, it would never get there. It would never pass. So you can basically set this like, how much of the total funds do we want to spend in any one time period with this trigger function? And the trigger function variable that really matters is percent of the DAO's funds that you're asking, that the choice is asking for. So let's say that we have this, we'll just say Giveth, because that's a fun one, right? So Giveth is using this DAO. We replace the Unicorn DAC with a momentum voting scheme. And, let's say I have a small request. I want to reimburse a flight for $100, right? So I'll put that up there. $100, the Unicorn DAC has $10,000. $100 is not very much of it. So like, it doesn't take a whole lot of voting power behind it. I could probably just pass it with the voting power I have. If I let all my votes sit there for a day, then boom, it would pass, right? And then, but if someone was asking for like, hey, we need to do a big overhaul of the DApp, it's going to cost $2,000, right? We'd have to put a lot more tokens there, and it would take a lot more momentum to actually pass that proposal, because and you know, a lot of this, we're kind of, people think this is kind of like a TCR, but it's not a TCR. The TCR is ordering a list, and here we're actually choosing from a set. So it is curation. We are curating a set of choices, but it's dependent, but it's not a list. And you can kind of actually denominate momentum in dollars. So it's a graph. So it's kind of a graph, right? And you can denominate momentum in dollars. So you can say, okay, this choice has, you know, $600 worth of momentum behind it. If the choice was only asking for $600, then it would pass right away, right? And then this is what gets really interesting, because with it being in Giveth, if that's a Giveth milestone and it's asking for $1,000 and it has enough momentum to pass if it was $600, if someone donated $400 to that milestone outside of the system, just a random donor came in, then it would instantly pass, and the DAO would fund the other $600. And so this system, when integrated with Giveth, has a lot of cool little features that encourage donation. Kind of like what Gitcoin's doing with the quadratic voting, where it's like, oh yeah, if a lot of people donate, this will be matched based off of popular choice. Here we have like you know, hey, there's this much voting power. $600 can go from this DAO right now if it raises $400 in donations. Okay, questions on momentum voting. I didn't do the best job of explaining it ever, but no questions?
Well, I need a visual. I just would like to say that.
Yeah.
Like, I totally lose you after you are like, it's basically, you know, a governance system for allocating funds within projects. These are the things you know, and then you allocate in percentages. And after that, like, I'm sitting here trying to take notes, and it's very, very difficult. I don't know if other people feel that way, but I find it very difficult to follow along or comprehend, and I would like a visual, and I would even be happy to help make a visual.
Kai actually made a little bit of a visual. I can see if I can find it, but what I would say is like the user story might help as well, where it's like, I'm a user and I want to vote. So what I'll do, all I'll do is I'll be like, oh yeah, these choices, I like this one, and this one. I'll allocate my percentages accordingly and then walk away, right? So as a user, I don't have to do I don't have to understand the underlying system. I just have to say, like, what percentage of my tokens do I want to allocate? And we might even make it be like a yes or no thing. Like, do you like this one? Yes. Oh, you do? Okay. You know, from 1 to 10, how much do you like it? I like it at 10. You know, do you like this one? No. Do you like this one? Yes. Okay. I like it at 5. You know, and then we'll actually do the percentages and stuff in the background. They don't even have to understand. They can just see, like, okay, the momentum in total that's behind this choice is this amount. And then if you like, yes, I like it at 10, the momentum would go up, right? And you'd be like, oh yeah. And then you would even get to follow that, and your voting power behind it would push it up. But as a user, you don't even have to know how or why it's going up. You just know that you support it. And then what's really interesting with this method is that if your choice gets passed, right, and it's been triggered and the funds happen, then your voting power can be allocated equally to the ones that haven't passed. So you don't have your tokens sitting in limbo and not being voted on. Oh man, now we got lots of people who want to talk. Laura, I guess you asked first, so, or you asked.
I didn't, question. But it's a piggyback question. Josh actually raised his hand first. But wait, so what do you mean the people don't see the percentages? Because I thought you were saying that people vote with percentages, and the whole idea is that they're informed about how much is the total available tokens supply, and they use that to know what percentages they want to give to each milestone or whatever.
So the system knows
The
those
system,
things,
okay.
right? But the user shouldn't be responsible to know anything.
Why?
I mean, they can, like, we can go to an advanced tab and we can have it be that they can like understand how the whole backbone is working, but we got to make it really easy for people to vote. And if they walk in there and they have to answer more than a yes or a no, or even like, I know Josh is a big fan of the like, put up 2 proposals and which one do you like more? You know,
it's the only way to go with data. People make arbitrary subjective decisions all the time, and they're largely wrong. And this is the qualms I'd have with letting them actually understand the percentages behind the scenes, because they'll start using or predicting what the outcomes will be if they change things in their variables. So in my opinion, like, I know that Likert scales are absolutely useless. That's what do you think of your experience 1 to 5? It's completely arbitrary data. It's been shown. So the only way to get reliable data is asking the right question with a yes and no answer, or for against, you know, a binary answer, and then weighing the relationships between those answers. The momentum voting can work, but my concern is actually letting them choose their percentages and things like that, because that will create all kinds of emergent properties within the system that I'm quite fearful will create fragility.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where you have to wonder, I mean, it's like in application, it has to be very application specific. So we have like this application, if you care about helping the homeless in Barcelona and you buy helping the homeless in Barcelona token, and you can decide which ones you want to do, you know, that is an empowering thing that gives the person like input. Now, if they don't want that input, then they might not vote at all, right? Or maybe they just put it all behind one choice, and then it's really easy. But I do feel like we gotta let the user who wants to support the charity like choose which ones they want to support in some way. And how exactly we do that, like the first run, no matter what we choose will be wrong, right? So like makes it a little bit easier.
Well put, mate. Yeah, we'll screw it up this one, we'll reiterate.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the budget box thing. This one or this one, yes or, you know, or like this, yes or no, this, yes or no, you know, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Hand up too.
Yeah, go ahead, Danny.
Do you have no power?
Oh.
Are you muted, Danny?
No, you're not. You're not muted.
Oh no, maybe I was in the void of a thought. So my question, I guess, is how does this correlate to what we do right now with like prioritizing DAP issues? Like, is that a form of momentum? Like, we all have a certain number of we have a certain amount of weight that we can apply to the various options that are presented, and what comes out of it is our collective weight, I guess, on which things we need to address first. So how does that correlate to what we're already doing? Where would be the major distinctions?
I mean, it's only kind of this, like what we're doing is more of a TCR for sure. Yeah, it's exactly what Josh said. It's a very basic thing, basic implementation of what we're doing, super basic with no time. And also it doesn't like recalculate if the thing gets passed. You know, you have to reallocate your dots.
Right.
But really,
so that's just a hack.
Yeah, it's really just a hacky way of doing something that's kind of the same, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Lorelai, did you have more questions on that?
No, I asked my question.
Josh, what about you?
I think I'm good. Yeah, I get it.
Okay. Well, that's a basic
time.
What?
Thank you for taking the time to explain it more clearly, though. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, we need to definitely work on it more, on explaining it. It's probably like the weakest part of our like narrative, so we got a long ways to go. But
the way I noted it after some thought was it's a graph of relationships between variables. I think that's the most generalized way I can sum it up.
yeah, I mean, it definitely, yeah.
I don't know if it helps anything, but feel free to steal it if it does.
Yeah, I think you have to be pretty deep in the game to have that mean anything, but yeah. Dan, Radical Exchange, did you have any things for how Giveth can benefit out of this Radical Exchange conference? Or any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's really interesting because, I mean, there was a couple different groups of people that were there that were all really clearly artists, activists, local politicians, a lot of different things that are being experimented with for at least 5-10 years now around politics and governance. From a grassroots perspective, so there was a lot of people there with a lot of things that are actually happening on the ground. Then there was this group of blockchain people that were there, and it almost seemed incongruous. Like you could see the difference. You could tell who was there for one thing and who was there for another, but there was so much interest between the two parties that's what really struck me, because I feel like Giveth is an organization that is doing and has a history already of doing what people are just now starting to think about in a lot of those other circles. So I think about how we can present Giveth and some tangible outcomes of our experimentation so far in a way that makes it useful to some of these other organizations that are doing incredible advancements in the civil arena. And like there was one of the projects that was being pitched was by a group called Civic. Are any of you aware of Civic?
For sure.
Yeah, I'd like to know more if you do know something about them, because as far as I've learned, they're decentralized identity that's not adopting the open standards. So I'm really confused by it, but I haven't dug.
Yeah, there was a lot of mixed feedback on it, but it was basically just a really simple way to they had a tool set up where I could walk right over there, set up a burner wallet immediately. They gave me some money and I could use it to vote on which it was focused on journalism. So, but I thought the tool was really interesting. And then when I was talking to David Morris, he was expressing some concerns with how they were coming at it, and that we definitely need to make sure that we have all of our technical bugs worked out before we start rolling out some of these things to people. I guess they had some sort of snafu at some point with what they rolled out earlier. But I think about how we are in a really unique position to share outcomes and learnings to some of these new folks who are just starting to get into using smart contracts and cryptocurrency in a way to advance the social hacking that's being done right now. So I feel like we have a position for bringing like life and culture and social hackers together with the code and the software and the internet hacking, right? I posted a link in the little chat here about the article that I saw. It's titled "Vitalik Buterin is embracing a new role as political theorist." What strikes me is that there has been so much talk and theory around how to change politics and our systems of governance from the inside out. And then there's all of this work to just build another system on the outside. And somewhere in the middle of that is our common ground.
for sure.
It was an
Very
interesting place for me because I felt like I've really turned my back on politics and government for quite a few years. But somebody made a statement that just really stuck with me. That said, everything right now is politics, and we do have to be engaged and involved in that in some way. So it just kind of put me in a thought of how can what we have been working on and experimenting with be presented in a way that can be useful for academics and getting some academic papers written about what we've done so far and sharing those learnings so that they can be developed further.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think reward DAO is something that's especially like relevant. Like, I wouldn't say that it's like the most successful thing, but it's something that's interesting, right? That like can be mentioned. I don't know if it gets like, especially its evolution and where it is now and how it got there and that kind of thing. And it seems to be actually still back flowing now that you've taken it under your wing. So that's good. But what other experiments were you thinking of? Unicorn DAC, I guess.
Yeah, I mean the Unicorn DAC is a pretty obvious one. But really, even before the Unicorn DAC, just having Giveth be developed and being dog fooded by the people who are developing it. When I hear the word success, when we're talking about experimentation, I always want to soft pedal that a little bit, because success is just getting results and information based on testing a theory, right? So our level of success is really how clearly we are able to produce and date what we learned from conducting these experiments.
Well, I definitely think
experiments, you say. That's a good point. Is how if you can't draw something, I believe you don't understand it, is an old phrase. So if we can't condense something ourselves or our experiences, I can talk for myself for sure, but you guys have probably heard similar. It's really hard to condense what has happened in the last 2 years. But to actually be able to generate a metric or an understanding, to be able to draw it, to explain and transmit to other people, to learn from, is definitely a kind of success metric that we should think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think this next experiment, the common stack, is really primed for radical exchange to just fall in love with it, because effectively we create programmatic tax that is distributed in a decentralized manner. And like creating an economy that taxes itself without any accountants, any enforcement, just like you opt in, it's like a toll bridge for whatever cause you want to use. So it's a very interesting, it's a very interesting system that like the second order effect, like opportunities you have there, where it's like instead of having a hotel tax that you have to enforce the hotels to use or whatever, you have hotel coin. And basically like Airbnb could use hotel coin, and then that would make sure that everyone is paying the hotel tax, right? Like you could have, you can really use this stuff to automate away and make taxes voluntary and solve the tragedy commons issues. I don't know. I think there's a huge overlap with our current, or at least my main focus right now, which is the common stack, and I think it's Giveth's main focus as well, and radical exchange. So I hope, I don't know, I assume we have some major contacts there, and I hope that we can kind of keep in touch and keep them informed of what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm remembering now there's one area I haven't gone back into a lot, but there was a lot of discussion about how private ownership interfaces with public utilities, and the commons relationship to public utilities, and how that can start at a really small scale, like just within Giveth, for example. What are our common utilities that we're funding? You know, the hardware and software fees and things that have to be paid for us to continue going on. And then that translates to the commons that it was being talked about by Radical Exchange, which is communities, physical communities, where people live, where's our electricity and our water, and what are the incentivations for maintaining those things. I feel like there's some really good opportunity there too, to look at how we're how we're relating to actual real world use of the commons, I guess. And I'll dig out some of the notes that I took on that aspect, because I think I'd like to flesh that out a little bit more.
Nice.
This is the hub from the sounds of it. I've not gotten into that book properly yet, but I've read a small article on it. And the Harbinger tax stuff is really interesting.
Yeah, that's the piece I haven't reflected on enough yet to be able to speak to, but I think it's actually the more important part.
Simon made this art. I don't think it's the same art that you were talking about with the auction, but he made this other art, the art that is always on sale, right? And then like basically the artist gets 5% of the sales price, you know, over the year, and the person who owns it can choose the sale price. But if they set it really high, then they get to keep the art, and no one would buy it from them, but they pay a high tax to the artist. But they set it really low, someone else could buy it from them, and they can't stop them from buying it for them. And it's a very interesting.
Yeah, that was the piece that was really blowing my mind.
Yeah. So like, and this is the Harbinger tax idea, and he actually implemented it, which is so fucking cool. Because this would be like, what if your car was always for sale, right? Or someone could just come and buy your car, and you didn't have it anymore. But they were willing to pay the tax that goes to the roads and the things and the blah 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 blah, and yeah, and then basically you have this kind of like property tax. I mean, it's basically a forever property, an asset tax that no one owns anything, but you have access to anything as long as you're willing to pay the price. You know, it's very interesting.
Right.
That sounds dystopian.
Yeah. Property has a lot of people. A lot of people don't like private property.
Yeah, but then it's just property that you can only acquire or only hold on to if you're really wealthy.
Or if
you agree. But actually, it's the public versus private that we need to think about. So some things are good to have in that system. Other things that we all commonly use, we definitely don't want to give a chance of is it plutocracy, isn't it? So, like for instance, you might want to have a public utility split completely separate. You know, you're doing a public utility in some way, shape, or form, and no one can buy it or auction over it. However, there are other things that, for instance, a drill that I keep in my back garden shed that never gets used, after a year it might want to auction itself to be picked up by somebody in the sharing economy, etc. So there's pros and cons that need to be balanced between the public and the private side of things. I wouldn't say it's good to be all private or all like public, because all public leads to like central planning and things like that, and all private leads to just the state of capitalism that we have now, and we kind of need to merge them to find a happy middle ground. No, that's just my opinion though.
So we got 3 minutes left. I wanted to give a chance for any other coordination things that anyone wants to bring up for anything like that? There's some unicorn DAC meetings happening.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all settled?
I mean, no.
Okay.
But I don't think that clearly having verbal contract conversations about it doesn't work. So.
Okay.
I feel like it's important to mention that we have those 2 new stories that Chris got published on Medium. The new What's Happening and then the Future of Giving and Crowdfunding the Commons. Those came out and everybody's really busy with a lot of other stuff, but it would be wonderful if we could find some, I don't know, call it ways to collaborate and get those stories out a little bit more and dive into them a little more. There's so much information in each of them.
Yeah, they're big stories. They're definitely worth the read if you want to stay updated on what the DApp is just integrated in and how to use it better. Although I think RJ did a great job at like making it easy to choose your milestone appropriately, it's still worth reading. Chris did an amazing job at breaking down what each one of those does and all the different choices that were added. So that's important. And then, of course, the future of Giving 2.0, like that's basically our roadmap, guys. So it's probably a good idea to just make sure you've read those. And retweet that shit. I think we got actually a lot of retweets on the future of giving one.
Yeah, indeed we did. But more are very welcome. Like spread it, indeed.
Yeah, exactly. Can't have too many retweets.
I appreciate the retweets and the thoughts of seeing that it's getting spread. I'm really interested in exploring ways we can solicit critiques or dialogue or some sort of feedback or engagement with it. It's interesting because the 2 stories are the two different parts of Giveth right now, and some people are really focused on one side, and other people are on the other.
Wait, what's the other side?
Well, the DApp. I mean, the DApp itself, the tool that we have, and then the mission.
Well, I'll tell you, the mission relies 100% on the DApp. So like, it's one and the same. In the end, it's like maintenance mode, and then it's kind of the funding mission, right? It's like funding and then maintaining. And yeah, there's definitely a dichotomy, I would say, between people who are working on that. I think Kai does a good job at bridging, for sure. Josh does a good job at bridging a little bit. At least he's always in all these things. So Chris as well. So yeah. But cool.
Yeah.
Well,
And to say something to that point of like getting feedback and discussion on it, I think the discussion that happened in general, to which Griff immediately responded elaborately, and then the call that he had with the person, that's the kind of things that are really good, and like it draws people to us, and I want to have more and more of these discussions in Riot, and I also link to it even in the article. So it's like inviting people in our like discussion groups and like keeping it alive here and like getting critical feedback. Let's just like keep growing our community and bring that discussion over.
Yeah, I'd really like to see more gravity around Riot. Just it's a nice open source framework.
And I would like actually to invite all of you, like, so for example, Josh, you posted a link, which is great, but like don't hesitate like to use the different channels that we have, because you, for example, you posted it in communities, but I think you meant to post it in communication, and actually it was probably best in blockchain talk. But I just wanted to like invite all of you, like if you read things, for example, the thing you just shared, Danny, I cannot see it because I'm on my phone. Please share that article about Vitalik. Just share it in blockchain talk, And other nodes that you have on Radical Exchange, like we have blockchain talk, we have random, we have communities, we have communication, we have governance. Josh is sharing a lot in governance, so that is great because it starts conversations. Like we are the conversation starters, and there's a lot of lurkers in there. And like if we post more, there's always like some person who reacts, and then there's a conversation. The more conversations, the more people will come because then it's interesting to like follow it.
Feedback loops.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna call it and do a quick checkout round. Thank you guys for the great. I'll model checkout. Thank you guys for the great conversation. Always good to have a check-in. It's nice to have a loose. It was probably overly organized on my part. I'm sorry about that. It was good to have a nice fireside chat and conversation about all the things. And I'll pass it to Danny.
Yeah, this was really awesome. I'm excited to start sharing some of this information. I've got it all in that milestone, but thank you, Chris, for reminding me that I can pepper the channels with it, which also makes me think I want to take that feedback I did for the donate page and do that for our join page too, because I think one really good way to engage and bring in more discourse is to share more clearly how people can get involved in what all of those rooms are and where to go for what. So just giving myself a little food for thought for that, and that's probably what I'm going to go work on now after this call. I'll pass it over to Lorelai.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to check out what's happening at this Women in Blockchain meetup in Barcelona that we're going to right after this. And yeah, nice to chat with you guys. Josh, do you want to check out?
Yeah, sure. I really enjoyed hearing all about Radical Exchange because as much as I hate the Gov, I feel that they really need to be reshaped. And I quite like this idea of Vitalik becoming a political theorist. I'd probably call him more a scientist than a theorist because he's actually putting methodology to things rather than hypothesizing infinitely, which is great. And yeah, so that was cool. It's good to hear all of your things from everyone. So yeah, I've got the notes. I'll share them and I'll put them on the wiki in a bit. And yeah, I really enjoyed the meeting as usual. I will pass to who's on my left. What is this fellow Jitster?
That is
Chris.
I. Yeah. So yeah, no, I also really enjoyed it. Thanks for like explaining momentum voting a little bit, Griff, because yeah, I did not know why we changed from preference signaling or like conviction voting, I mean. Yeah, I think to me the name is way less clear than it was before, to be honest. And I still don't get it at all, to be honest, again. But I guess, yeah, like with like a user story, it will be easier and like seeing it visualized, like Lorelai said. But it's good to like every time hearing a little bit, I understand a little bit more. And it was really good to hear the update on Radical Exchange as well, because it always reminds me of like there's this one side of like this of who we are, actually the elite, who is like just like creating some theory and some utopian visions, and then there's like some people working in the field really doing the dirty work, and it's good when those two come together. So please do share notes, Danny. I'm really interested as well. And I thank you very much, and thanks for energizing me today. I needed it, and I give it to Bowen if he's still there.
Oh yeah, I'm still here. So I am interested in trying to read up a little bit more about this because I understand I understand the basic concepts behind it, but I don't understand like implementation yet. So I'm always interested in learning new governance stuff. So even though it's starting to get like more and more complicated by the day, it would seem. And thanks everybody for being here, and thank you, Griff, for wearing the Santa outfit. It's always fun to see. And I think I was the last one, so yeah. I guess I'll say good afternoon to you all, and we'll see you back in Riot.
Yeah. Good evening, guys. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you guys.